Hey there, it's Dusty Thunder once again with another Reddit story. This one is from AITA and is titled, Will I Be the Astronaut If I Bought a Car My Wife Couldn't Drive? I need to buy a new car, and I would love to have a manual transmission. It's my one non-negotiable. I grew up driving a manual, and I miss it deeply. All of my cars have been inherited, so I've never had a say in my car's features or specs. This will be the first car that I purchased for myself. Finally, I'm a car guy. I enjoy driving, and I've always wanted a sporty car, but also have it fit my needs. My wife is 7 months pregnant and bought herself a new midsize SUV last year with her own money. She views cars as a way of getting from A to B with practical and comfort. Note, we have to park our cars back to front in our gravel driveway, with one car being in the garage. I will widen the driveway, which I can do in a weekend, so we can park our cars side by side. We have mostly separate finances, but have a joint CC and checking account, which we both contribute to monthly. The rest is our personal money that we keep in our personal bank account, including separate savings and separate investments. I'm paying the down payment and the monthly payments on the new car, so I feel the decision is mine, but happy to listen to my wife's thoughts, reciprocation from her car purchase. When I started the car buying process, I went with sport compacts, which are in my budget based on prior discussions. The car has to be a daily commuter for me, allowing me to take the kids to and from daycare and quick local trips. My wife thinks these cars are too small and cannot fit our needs with the baby and a potential second child. She says there's not enough space for our kids' stuff. There is. And the back seats won't fit two backward-facing car seats. They will. I've tried to show her my research, but she refused to watch the videos or read the articles that I bookmarked. Her main sticking point is she won't be able to drive it because it's a manual. She's concerned that she won't be able to drive it when she'll need to in an emergency. I told her I was happy to teach her manual, but at first she flat out refused to learn. Now she says that she'll learn, but gives an excuse of how we'll be too busy. I said if it's that important she drives the car, her mom can stay for a weekend to watch the baby and we can take a day for her to learn. Again, she said she won't have time. Every time we discuss it, she accuses me of ignoring our family and that she needs to be able to drive the car. I say she's creating a false dichotomy, and the car that I want can fit our needs. I also argue that her car can be the big family car for trips or hauling, and my car can be for easy parking during city trips or sports events. Note, I do not drink, so I will always be able to drive. We've had many arguments over this. The most recent resulted in her giving me the cold shoulder for 2 days. I am at my wit's end and ready to buy without her blessing. Will I be the astronaut if I ignored my wife's objections and got the car that I wanted? Edit! I'm specifically looking at a Honda Civic Si. We live within walking distance of urgent care, CVS, and a grocery store. Our neighbor is a NICU nurse if shit really hits the fan, and we do babysit the father-in-law's SUV. He works and lives abroad, which we use on occasion, but we don't know when he'll be returning, so a third car is not an option for now. Edit 2, classic rip my inbox. After parsing through this thread, there are separate issues at play that I've sorted out, and here's what I've gathered. 1, I will be the astronaut for buying a car my wife can't drive without her blessing. Yes, I fully acknowledge my timing of this is awful. I will postpone the purchase until after the baby arrives, and I'll get an automatic to ensure we both drive the car. 2, I'm not an asshole for wanting a manual car, and the model of car I want is reasonable. My wife could learn eventually, but that's her choice. Again, my timing is terrible, which makes me the a-hole, so I'm going to get my fun car in a few years' time. Clarifying point, I don't want an SUV. They're more expensive, and I would much prefer driving a car that's not high up. I also think automotive companies have shoved a narrative down Americans' throats that SUVs are the only family-friendly option, which is false. Literally, just look at the rest of the world. Well. So the question was, will I be the astronaut if I bought a car my wife couldn't drive? You know what, Candy Thunder? I know that you're not scheduled for feedback here, but I really want to hear your thoughts on this story. Would you mind coming up and talking with us for a moment? You don't have any thoughts about this? How so? She said, I'll explain. I'll explain. I'm like, oh.
I'll explain why I don't have thoughts. I think that he should just get whatever car he wants, because we had another story about a woman who wanted a Porsche a Porsche SUV, because that's what she had always seen as achieving. She's made it. That's where she's at. That's the car. And I don't personally care that much about cars. And I don't know how to drive a stick, or what is it? Manual?
A manual.
Okay. I don't know how to drive that. I've tried multiple times. And I could get it, but I wasn't great. And he bought a manual because that's what he wanted. And we were trading in my car after we had gotten an SUV. And I just don't care. Like, I'm not going to drive it. I don't think there would ever be a point where you would take my car and leave me with that because you know that I couldn't drive it. So I think they would just have to make sure that that is what happens in this case. But I don't know that I care enough about what car I drive to like actually give some kind of healthy feedback here. It's like, just do what you want to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad that you came up and shared that because it sparked some new thoughts for me. And I will say this. As long as the manual car that you're wanting is a family-friendly car and you can fit 2 kids in the back of that, as long as it's one of the 4-door Civics, you can do that. You've done your research to prove that this is a grocery getter as well. It's a Honda Civic Si. It's not a freaking Ferrari. It is not a Corvette. It is not something that is not a daily commuter kind of car. That was similar to my situation. It was a Subaru WRX, and it was a grocery getter. The back seats have tons of room. The trunk space has tons of room.
It's a huge trunk.
It is really a grocery getter. Like it is, yeah, it's sporty, but it is not without its practical functions here. Now, I will say it was a similar situation where yes, she can't drive a manual. So if she needed to drive the Subi, she couldn't. And I will say, we went into this knowing that you couldn't drive it and just accepted that and thought it won't be an issue. There have been several times where like our car situation will get complicated or got complicated because I couldn't leave the manual behind. You know what I mean?
If we had to pick it up from somewhere, or
if we had to pick it up from somewhere, or if like I needed to transport more kids or use the SUV, leaving that manual behind wasn't an option. So I'd say you have to, OP, you're accepting some risk here as well, because you know that you could find yourself in a position where this is a complication. So I would really try to make sure that you're proactively like getting her to agree to that training, because it's not enough to say that she could do it. She's got to be willing to do it for you to know that you at least have a solution to hedge against that risk later on.
I will say that I don't think, and this is just me and my experience being pregnant, at 7 months pregnant, like I was like full baby blinders focus. I did not want to learn something new that I would need to remember for the rest of my life. Pregnancy brain is a very real thing. You find yourself forgetting like a lot of stuff. So I don't know that teaching your wife something while she's she's in her last trimester. I don't know that it would be the best time to learn something new. And maybe other people have different experiences, but for me, it was like, I was very hyper focused on growing the baby and prepping for the baby and feeling overwhelmed. You know, you only have 2 months left, like you're on the downhill slope. So I do think me personally that I would want to learn how to drive a manual, because I think that's something that's important. And I think I have the concept. I understand it. Like I get it. Not great.
Once she got it, she would be hooked.
I think that it would be great, but my dad tried to teach me. My brother tried to teach me. Dustin tried to teach me. I get too distracted. And then it just does not.
If it became a frequent enough or severe enough problem, we would do that. Like that's how we would solve it, by doing that though.
If I needed to learn how to drive it, I would figure out how to drive the damn car.
And for them right now, they're babysitting the father-in-law's SUV, so they don't know when he's going to come back. However, that does buy them some time. It does buy them some time. So
cars theoretically, if he got this car.
They don't know when the third will not be available, but I mean, it's at least it's available right now.
Right.
So that at least puts a Band-Aid on it. So it gives you a little bit more time. It seems like I don't know. It's a tough situation. My gut says do it. You'll be able to teach her whenever she's willing to learn, and the being willing to learn is going to be on her. So the risk of it being a problem really weighs on when she finally agrees to learn.